The Savage Nation. It's Savage on Demand.
Let's move to politics for a few minutes on the Savage Nation and go back to the Jersey City shooting. We've already forgotten about the Black Hebrews, the Black Hebrew Israelites, swept under the rug because they were not white nationalists. They didn't look like Timothy McVeigh. They weren't former Army veterans. They didn't meet the profile that CNN prefers, and yet they shot up a Jewish deli, killed people. And we want to talk about that for a minute because of the rising tide of anti-Semitism in America, especially from atypical sources. See, they're not all conservative right-wingers who are doing these things, although there are those as well. Right now we have Zach Schapira, executive director of the Jacques Coalition for Justice, for a few minutes to talk about the Jersey City shooting on the Savage Nation. Zach, welcome to the program. What can you tell us about it? Have any more details emerged about the Jersey City killers and their motives since the initial finding that they were followers of the Black Hebrew Israelites?
Yeah, first of all, Michael, thank you so much for having me. I think two things really emerged in the days following the shooting. The first is that we know for sure now that this was, without a doubt, an anti-Semitic attack. There was some initial confusion about whether it was just a case of bystanders getting caught in a crossfire. There were some news reports that it was a drug bust gone wrong. But all the evidence that's now in points to the fact that they chose this specific target because it's Jewish.
Well, I read later on that they were actually targeting a Hebrew school across the street with children in it.
Exactly. And so, that's the second thing. That
Well, who are these evil Black Hebrew Israelites? Who are these people?
Well, it's a loose and decentralized movement of black supremacists that believe that they're the true descendants of biblical Jews.
Wait a minute. There's such a thing as a black supremacist? I haven't heard of that. All I've heard of I've only heard about white supremacists. Of course, I've known about Hispanic supremacists for years because if you listen to La Raza, what they're espousing is the superiority of their own particular orientation and race. Of course, there are supremacists in all races. Well, I really am not that shocked to hear about the Black Hebrews being black supremacists. Of course, Wolf Blitzer hasn't heard that. You wrote the following in USA Today, Zach. You said anti-Semitism is rising across the world and becoming more violent and lethal. But somehow it only inspires popular outrage when it can be blamed on the far right. Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, anti-Semitism is on the rise. You pick a statistic: vandalism, harassment, hate crimes. In this case, murder targeted against Jews, and the rates are accelerating year over year. And it's not just because white supremacy is on the rise, or because of broader racial tensions. This is a disease that's spreading from all possible sides, from both.
Yeah, but why? The question is why? Where's it coming from? In my opinion, look, you want to discuss it? It's because of the influx of Muslims into Europe and into America. I mean, and I know that it's inherent in the hatred.
Well, anti-Semitism is nothing new. It's been around for thousands of years, as long as there have been Jews.
Yeah, but it wasn't. But Zach, it was not really prevalent in this country over the last 30 or 40 years. All of a sudden, we see it everywhere. In Europe, we know it's coming from the influx of Islamics into Europe. I know you probably don't want to say it. Now, the Black Hebrews, are they Christians? Are they Jewish? What are they?
Some self-identify as Christians, some self-identify as Jews, but I think the primary takeaway from them is that they're conspiracy theorists. They think that Jews are fake imposters. One of the conspiracy theories that was spread by one of the shooters in Jersey City is that Jews are using the police to carry out a well-planned agenda against black people.
And what is that agenda in their paranoid mind? That's coming directly from Nation of Islam. Whatever his name is, Louis Farrakhan preaches that regularly, and their newspapers.
So you hear this in
the newspapers of the Nation of Islam profess the most vile kind of anti-Semitism on a regular basis, and it's a free country. But the fact is, a lot of it's coming from their newspapers and their preachings.
Yeah, so similar theories have been spread even outside of the Black Hebrew Israelites, but it's not hard to imagine how this kind of hateful rhetoric incites violence and can lead to the type of atrocity we saw in Jersey City.
Well, what is anyone supposed to do about it? They can't ban free speech, can they?
No, I think that this most recent increase is because of a rise in hate speech and in nasty identity politics from all sides. From the right, it's clear that white nationalists have become more brazen. The march in Charlottesville 2 years ago was a stark example of this. Also, far-right conspiracy theories about Jews flooding the country with immigrants, being responsible for taking white people's jobs away. That's, for example, what the Pittsburgh killer believed. But the far left has conspiracy theories, too, about Jews or Israel being behind police brutality. That played a role in Jersey City. We've seen that parroted by different leaders in the progressive movement.
Well, look, you could get me involved in my discussion. I've actually done a whole show on it where I asked, is anti-Semitism going to be spiked up because of the prominent Jewish people on the left in the impeachment hearings? I mean, we can put our head in the sand and say that Schiff, Nadler, Engels have no effect upon the population and their thinking, but you'd be wrong to say that. People are really angry right now, one way or the other. Why are people who so hateful about Donald Trump and his supporters that they call people who vote for Trump Nazis? They say everyone who votes for Donald Trump is a Nazi. How is that possible?
Yeah, well, one of the most pernicious, byproducts of this type of hatred is that you'll find people justifying all types of bigotry, and in this case, in Jersey City, the murder was sort of justified by some media outlets by there being tension in the community. There was tracing the history of the Pacific Jewish community in Jersey City. The New Yorker ran a big piece on this.
All right. Well, Zach, I don't mean to cut you off, but your phone is breaking up. That's the absolute truth. And again, I thank you very much for joining us on this very important topic of the resurgence of anti-Semitism in America.